for something exciting to read while you enjoy some sugary cereal?
Yeah!
Then grab a copy of Mighty Mascots from Alterna Comics! Born from the ashes of a disastrous 3D printing accident, 8 living advertisements have banded together to right the wrongs of this world, led by a former child star. These unlikely heroes are freaks to some, but you will know them as the Mighty Mascots. The miniseries is 3 issues full color and printed on glorious newsprint. This is the fun superhero series that you didn't know you needed. Created and written by Keith Gleason, featuring artwork by Ian Morianto and colors by Anton Bondi.
Ahoy, I can't wait for more!
Mighty Mascots is part of your complete breakfast and comic book reading experience. Only from Alterna Comics.
Hey, everybody, this is Keith Gleason back with another episode of Indie Comics Relay. And with me always is my good friend and co-host, Johnny C. How's it going, buddy?
It's Wednesday, so you know what that means. We're back at it again.
Yeah. I was about to play Jeff's video for his Kickstarter, who's tonight's guest, Jeff Ryder. But then I realized I never shared the audio, so it was going to be just like another... like a 2-minute video with no audio. So
So no, you bought some time, and that's great. So we can actually roll it in full a little bit later on. But I was just going to say, before we bring Jeff in, I mean, Jeff's a really good friend of mine. One of the comic creators I definitely I say hold as an example. When people say, hey, who's a good indie artist who self-publishes, is that, somebody to pay an example to? And I always point people towards Jeff. Great friend. I trust him with my life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to actually talking to Jeff. I've never met him, so this is going to be cool.
He's awesome. He's awesome.
So without further ado, should we just bring him in? And then
let's bring him in.
All right. Tonight's guest, Jeff Ryder. Hello, sir. Thank you
for
joining us on Indie Comics Relay. How's it going?
Thanks. It's going really well, except now I'm responsible for Johnny's life, apparently.
Not to put any pressure on you. I'm just saying,
man, that's kind of a lot, dude.
I trust you to that extent.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, how did you cats meet before we get into this? Like, how did you guys? Do
you want to say?
When was it first? Like, when did you guys first meet?
It was special edition, right?
I'm pretty sure it was special edition, and I think if any comic creator who goes to like the, like how to make comics panels knows that, the people that you see over and over again in different panels throughout the day are probably people who are inevitably creative peers that you want to follow. And sure enough, I mean, I recall just, going to these creative panels throughout the day at, special edition and NYCC, and you see the same faces. And Jeff was definitely one of the faces that I saw.
Awesome. Yeah. You guys have been kept in touch since then and everything.
Oh yeah, that was a really great show. For anybody who is not aware of what special edition was, New York Comic Con for a while had a mid-year sort of mini show that was comics only, no TV and movies, loads of swag and the good stuff that you look for at cons, but it was smaller, it was more intimate, and there was a lot of really great professional development stuff. And,
actually, I've been to that show once. I went with
It didn't last very long, unfortunately.
No, it was like, what, 3 times or something like
that?
Yeah.
And at the second one, Johnny and I were there, and there was a small group of folks who put together an indie creator meetup. There was, a handful of panels, how to write comics, how to break into comics, the same ones we've all been to a bunch of times. And there's always good nuggets of info there, and we were all there soaking it up, like Johnny said. You sort of recognize all the faces, and then we realized, like, an hour here and an hour there is not enough. We want to get together after the show's over. We want to go hang out. And so Johnny and some other folks had put together this gathering at a small local bar. And when special edition was over, a bunch of people wandered over together and got to know each other a little bit better, and took those like those 10 minutes of meeting somebody at a show and, hey, I got this cool idea, and oh, you make this nice thing, and turned it into a long, more intimate conversation, and really got into the goods of the kinds of comics that we wanted to try to make and the things we were hoping to learn. And I mean, there are some blood brothers and sisters from that one night And it became a crew of folks that just grew and brought each other in and supported each other for a long time. And yeah, it's been great. They're my comics family. I love those kids.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, when people say, "Oh, there isn't a strong comics community," I'd say no, it's wrong. I mean, I've seen it, I've witnessed it, I've walked in those circles, and Jeff's definitely one of those individuals.
Awesome. Yeah, let's say hello to the chat before we get into any more. We got Roland with us tonight. Roland, how's it going? We got Hydra Comics. Howdy. Howdy. We got Ara with us. Hey, Ara, thanks for joining us. Ginger Tin's with us. Hey, man, how you doing? Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Sup, Ginge?
Yeah. So, Jeff, one thing we always ask our guests right up at the front of the show is, like what was there a comic or a TV show or a movie that you saw when you were, younger that inspired you, that wanted to make you be part of this business, like making comics? Like, was there something that you read or, I know it's like kind of on the spot question.
No, absolutely. I can totally think of two things. When I was really, really young, this is going to date me a little bit. If the white hairs and the beard don't, this is going to do it. I first started reading comics at the newsstand at the grocery store with when my mom would go to shop groceries. Back when you could buy comic books in a grocery store, and there was such thing as a newsstand. There were all the magazines on the top, and I grew up in Texas. It was like Guns and Ammo and all the horrible whatever. And then but there's these piles of comics on the bottom, and I started out reading G.I. Joe comics, like back in the Larry Hama era of G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
And I love G.I. Joe like crazy. And I had little toys, and I was, of that age. And but one of the, I don't know if this is a flaw or not. It's not going to sound like a flaw when I finish the story. But one of the problems at the time of reading comics off the newsstand is they're just comics piled in the newsstand, right? This is not a nice shop, and they're not bagged and boarded. There's just stuff crammed in there. Yeah. And you would go, and me and 7 other kids are sitting on the floor pulling stuff out of it, whatever. And so, like, the G.I. Joes I had would be like 12, 15, 17, 18, 21, whatever, all these gaps, right? You just find whatever you could get your hands on, and you would buy it and read it, whatever. And my mom has a fun hobby of her own. She's a sewer and a quilt person and what have you. And she was going over to a local shop that had sewing stuff to whatever, and it was right next door to the only comic book shop in my town that I knew anything about, a place called Lone Star Comics in Mesquite, Texas. And it's around the corner from the skating rink where they film Boys Don't Cry, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, mom was going to the thing, and I said, Mom, I want to go with you because there's that bookstore next door. And I was like, even at like 8 or 9, I was smart enough not to call it a comic shop. I was like, it's a bookstore. And Mom was like, okay, cool. You want to go buy books? I'll take you to buy books. That's awesome. And so she took me over there, and I like tagged along, and she went into one store and I went in the other to look for missing G.I. Joe issues. And I was aware there were superheroes in the world when I was 8 or 9. Of course, I'd watch Batman on TV and Spider-Man and certain things. And I was way into Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, which was that era as well. Which was the series that featured Spider-Man and Iceman and Firestar. Yeah, and I had a hint that X-Men were a thing, but I didn't totally really know what was going on until I walked into the shop, Lone Star Books and Comics, and it was like watching your brain explode from outside your own body. And like it was so bizarre. And hang on, because I'm going to disappear off camera for like one teeny tiny second, but I'll show you why in a minute.
It'll be worth it. Trust me.
It'll be worth it.
It'll be worth it. Trust me.
Because I came across this.
Oh,
this is not the copy, but this is New Mutants. New Mutants 50, the big double-sized issue. There you go. Nice. And you'll see this one's scribbled on because Chris Cremont signed this one for me a few years ago. But awesome. That was the first superhero comic I ever bought. And I read that copy of it that I bought at that shop that day until it fell the fuck apart. Excuse my language. Like it was just rags. I read it over and over and over and over and over. And from there, it was
realized that like comics could be something else besides like G.I. Joe. And
yeah. Like I said, I understood they were superhero comics. I knew that was a thing. I probably flipped through a Spider-Man or a Batman or something somewhere before. Again at the newsstand era, I wasn't only reading the G.I. Joes, but nothing ever dragged me into a world the way New Mutants and then eventually X-Men did. And I became
bigger for you that day.
Oh my God, it really did. I became a Make Mine Marvel kid so hard. And this is not even 90s X-Men. This is deep mid to early 80s X-Men. This is like
Yeah,
85, 86.
New Mutants was kind of a weird title too, which is cool.
And it was so odd. It didn't look like what I was expecting. I didn't know what it was. There's this blonde kid with a sword, and I was like, what the hell is this? I don't know what attracted me to it or why I picked it up, but I read it in the shop, and then I bought it with a couple of G.I. Joes and a couple other XE things that the guy pointed me to.
Your story is so
similar
to me as well, because I think like a gateway drug were those movie and cartoon tie-in comics, because for me it was Transformers from Marvel. And then also, do you remember Marvel had like an Indiana Jones comic that continued the adventures of Indiana Jones?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, it was like him on New Adventures. And like those were the two comics that I first bought. And then after that, I sampled a Hulk and a Spider-Man comic, and then that was it. I was in.
The beauty of those books at that time too is that, I mean, think back to that era, right? We didn't have on demand, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have streaming.
Yeah, and you're discovering this new world, you know.
Right. We'd rewatch VHS tapes till they broke, right? Same way Jeff flipped through books till they fell apart, right? So each new issue is just an expansion of your imagination, and this, these characters that you only see in a movie or on a TV series, things like that.
Yeah, and so that was like and after you read that was the point where you're like, I got to be involved in this industry. Is that?
Yeah. Oh God, no, not in the. I didn't read it and think, man, I want to make comics.
Okay. When did that become like a thing?
Oh God, that was so much later. My daughters actually have a funny story. When my wife and I got together, she had two young girls from before, and so I've known my girls since they were like 8 or 9 years old. And it ties into this because they used to ask me, what did you want to be when you were a kid? And I said, Spider-Man. And they were like, you wanted to write Spider-Man comics? And I was like, no. I wanted to be Spider-Man. Like, when I was 9 years old reading the New Mutants and the thing, I didn't want to write the New Mutants. I was hoping I had a mutant power that was going to come up when I hit puberty. I was watching the clock. I was like, bring it. What's it going to be? Because some of the delight in that was like getting past these sort of boring superhero tropes that you saw. Spider-Man was interesting to me because it was so weird. He wasn't just Superman, and I'd seen Super Friends as a kid growing up, and there seemed to be like some of these really tropey, like there's a water dude and there's a flying dude,
right, yeah.
And like, but man, you get into X-Men and she can teleport, but she's got a sword and she does magic and they're a demon. Like the blending of all these crazy things and the stuff that these guys could do was so original, and they could just do it because they could do it.
Yeah,
they didn't get bitten by a weird thing or accidentally fall into a vat of whatever. They could just do it, and I so wanted that to be my life. So, like, thinking about getting into making comics wasn't a thing that I thought about until I was almost 35 or 36 before I thought about trying to make my own comics.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy. I studied writing and storytelling my whole life. I always wanted to write. When I was a kid, I always wanted to tell stories, and clearly,
but you were thinking more of like a novelist path at that point.
Yeah. And we'll get into this a little bit in the origins of Holmes and Watson. But I grew up on adventure fiction. Besides reading comics and that kind of stuff, my grandmother was a librarian, and when I was a little kid, she used to give me books as birthday gifts and what have you all the time. I remember my grandmother giving me a box of like The Three Musketeers and The Count of Monte Cristo and Treasure Island and the guy got stranded on a desert island, which is escaping me now. But that kind of stuff, that really, really classic adventure fiction. And those were the first things that I was super duper into. And like in that box, along with a lot of that stuff, was my original copies of the complete Sherlock Holmes. And that was the kind of stuff that I was hooked on when I was young. And comics was like the thing I read when I wasn't reading those books, because it was that same sort of wild action adventure. Anything can happen, sort of a deal. And in comics in particular, man, there are no rules, and the visuals are so much more exciting. So I had kind of a double reading pattern when I was younger. And then when I went off to college and decided I wanted to be a writer, I got wrapped up in like the teaching that you get to be a writer, which can be very over the top and pretentious. Is that the word that I'm going to use, and hope my writing professors aren't watching this? I spent a lot of time trying to write important American fiction and the things that they teach you to do in school. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's good value in all that stuff. And I learned things that I needed to, be able to grow and be a good storyteller and things like that. But there was a part of me deep inside that always wanted to tell stories about dudes who shot laser beams out of their face and jumps off of buildings and, flew jet planes into outer space and stuff. And like, I was struggling against the kinds of stories I wanted to tell and the kinds of stories I'd sort of been told I was supposed to tell and the kind of writing I was supposed to be doing. And I struggled with that for years and years and years. And I had other jobs, and I kind of let those other jobs become more important. And when my wife and I first got together, and she swears she doesn't remember this, but she said to me at one point, "Why don't you write comics? You're the biggest dork that I know." and I was like, I am the biggest dork that you know. Why don't I write comics? I read comics. My comic collection is out of control, but I never
like encouragement covered in like an insult, right?
Yeah, a little passive aggressive. Yeah. But she was right. Like I had never tried it. It was something that I enjoyed, but it wasn't something that I thought I want to take this apart and I want to get my hands dirty making this because it seemed big and complex.
Yeah. That's why we always ask about it, because it is such a, people don't understand that. Just read them, like how hard it is to actually make one.
Yeah. The compulsion to actually take the task upon yourself is unique in individuals. Not everybody. There's a reason why not everybody does it, right? And some people try and they can't do it. So for the individuals that can, it's that much more special. At least
and it was the kind of thing that I was afraid to try it because I didn't know what was involved. Like, again, I had all this training. I went to school and I learned all these things and I got a degree. And I can write a sentence and I can tell a story and I can craft, long form prose, and that's great. But I don't know how this works. And I had known when it comes to comics, and I known some folks who'd worked in TV and film, and writing for those mediums is very rigid. There are rules. There are guidelines for writing scripts, and there's a difference between how you write a screenplay and how you write a sitcom. And like, if you don't format things properly and turn them in, you look unprofessional and no one will pay attention to you. And there are unions and all kinds of other scary things. And like, it's hard to learn the extra craft that you need to know around working in those mediums. And I guess I had it in my head that comics was like that, right? Comics, there would have to be a script and then their artist would have to draw it. And I had seen in all the books I'd ever read that there was a writer and an artist and an editor and a letterer and a colorist and sometimes a penciler and an inker. And I had a vague notion of what those things were, but I was like, that's a lot. This is clearly way more moving parts than me just sitting and writing a story. I think I'm just going to stick with this because that sounds hard. And that was silly because like another thing that I did growing up was I played music. I was in bands and I played jazz a little bit in college and some stuff like that. And I'd been involved in Austin when I lived there for about 10 years in a collaborative art show called 20 by 2. And I'd been involved in some other things that were very collaborative, that were very lots of people making art. And I love that stuff. I love playing a band with, 3-4 other people and riffing back and forth. And I really enjoyed theater and different things that were collaborative. But when I was trying to make art, I was sitting and writing my little stories in a hole. And it wasn't getting me anywhere. And when my wife said, "Why don't you try comics?" I thought, maybe there's something to that and I should look into it. So then I went to a Comic-Con, for the first Comic-Con I've been to since I was a little kid. And I thought, maybe there's something to this, and maybe I need to figure out how to learn the rules. And you also don't know like what an industry is like if you don't work in it. By that point, I was a grown adult and I had a whole career doing something else. And I was like, if I get into this and it's gross, like maybe I don't want to be here. Like, I don't know, maybe it's super hard to get into, or you totally have to kiss the right butts or whatever. Maybe it wasn't for me. So I talked to some friends who had a website that wrote about pop culture stuff, and they said they were looking for somebody to write about comics. And I wrote a couple blog posts for them so that I could apply to get a press badge to go to a show for free. And maybe get a little behind the scenes and kind of peek under the hood and kick the tires a little bit and see what the industry was like. And about an hour into the first day at my first convention that I had been to in years, I was kicking myself for not having been there for 20 years. What were you doing with your life before you got here? These are my people, and this is where I should have been all along. And
It's true.
And I came home, and I think I blew my wife's mind because I was like, I can't believe you totally, like, I should have been doing this. This is what we're going to do now. All these worries about what are we going to write and what's going to happen, this is what's happening now. Now I have to figure out how to do it. And And then the second great thing I learned from a lot of the same panels that Johnny was at, where we met, was that, man, that whole fear about learning the structure and knowing the form, whatever, when it comes to comics, man, there are no rules.
That's the thing.
A Wild West.
Yeah,
it really is. Like, it's pure creative freedom. Like, and not just in the medium where you can draw whatever you want and you can whatever. Like, every writer is different and every artist works differently and every creative team is brand new. And there is not a set in stone way to make comics.
Right.
So you can figure out what works for you, and there's nothing to stand in your way to make it.
Yeah.
And I think
that was the part that made me go crazy.
I think that's the key there too, Jeff, is that like there's different ways where people view making comics. There's people who intently try to make them specifically for a publisher, and some people just make for self-gratification, and you know what I mean? And I think, and then sometimes beautifully all that is so all wrapped up into one thing with a bow on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And specifically, of all your titles, I think this one
look at that.
is the most that. And I've seen this book for as long as I've known you. And
there's been a version of it around for a while.
This book transformed as much as you transformed as a creator, I'd like to say.
Aww.
Yeah. And I think this is one of Jeff's masterpieces. Please don't let this break the mold. Please don't let this be your pinnacle, because this is a fine masterpiece of independent comic work.
That's a lot. Come on.
No. You're my friend, and I can say that, but I'm saying that genuinely.
Shut up! I'm not crying. You're crying.
Because when don't get to Arcane yet. We're not.
No.
Oh no, this is the website doing.
All right.
But I was just going to say.
Let me see if there we go.
Holmes and Watson. When you read it, you can see the amount of research that was put into it, the amount of dedication that Jeff put into it, trying to ape and make sure that his characters sounded authentic as possible for, I believe it's 1914 in which it's set, if I remember correctly. So that is a lot of, coming from a comic creator who worked in a time era that I was not born in or had very little to know about. Jeff did a masterful job with that. I haven't read 3 and 4 yet, and I can't wait. I know I backed it, but this is the campaign right now that'll get you the full thing, the full shebang.
Yeah, and Jeff, he's not lying either, because he's been telling me about your book for a while now, actually. And
it's a
and we're
fun
not
thing.
on camera when he does it, so I know he's legit.
Yeah, it's existed for a while. There was the book that we're doing now. The 4-issue print series, which is available on Kickstarter right now, is sort of a relaunch of the original idea. The original comic was a web comic that we tried to run on Patreon, and it was a completely different artistic team way back in the day. And
so did you redo it after the Patreon?
We did. It started as a short story. It was only a 12-page comic, and then there was a second 12 or it was either 8 or 12 pages. I don't remember. There was a second half of the first story, and the artist that I was working with, a guy named Carlos Caballero, he and I built the original story, and we were thinking about, this was when Patreon was brand new, really. It was about 5 years ago, and we were figuring out, could we get people to back it every month, and could we put out a few pages here and a few pages there, and it ended up not working out. We didn't totally understand how to make Patreon work, and Carlos ended up wanting to do some different things. And so it never really went anywhere. We did about 20 pages of online webcomic, and that was just kind of there. And like I said, Carlos moved on to do some other stuff, and the project was on hold for a while. This is actually Carlos's art that you're seeing right there, that purple motorcycle shot. Yeah. It's just about the coolest panel from the original book, and his name should be right. In fact, you scrolled right past his name there for a second. Because he developed so much of the original art, his name is, for character design and stuff, is always in every issue of Major Holmes. It wouldn't have existed without Carlos had he not helped me originally get the idea off the ground. But then I went shopping for new artists for a while, and I decided I want to make this a real live, full-blown print comic. I gathered the pages that Carlos and I had done, and I had a cover made for it, and we did sort of a sample, like an ashcan book. that I was using to sort of show other artists and different people and maybe some publishers and who knows, trying to get the project back up and running again, because it was a story I really, really badly wanted to tell. And I think it's a great idea. I think it can be a lot of fun. And it just took me a while to find the right creative team. Yep. And when I did, we started completely over from scratch.
The art's excellent. And one thing I noticed right off the bat, great lettering too. Like lettering really makes or breaks.
Birch is the man.
Yeah, Justin, good job. I mean, it's very professional.
I joke with him a lot because it's Sherlock Holmes-esque. It's a Sherlock pastiche, I guess. It's about Sherlock Holmes' nephew, who's a spy during World War I. It's a next generation thing. Oh, cool. But it has to have that feel of a Sherlock Holmes story so that Sherlock Holmes fans will appreciate it.
Is he sort of a detective too, or
he is both a detective and a spy at the beginning of World War I. He has I can give you the pitch real fast. Sheffield Holmes is the nephew of the great detective who is a major in the British intelligence service at the beginning of the First World War. So he's a little bit Sherlock and a little bit James Bond. He has a mysterious American woman who uses the Watson name, who's his partner. And they discover a murder in London's East End that looks very suspiciously like one of Sherlock Holmes's first famous cases.
Oh, cool.
From that, they discover a plot against the Holmes family itself and possibly all of Europe. And they have to sneak out a nefarious cabal that's doing evil stuff. Not going to give away too much, but that's generally what's going on in issue 1. And yeah. That's so I lost the train of thought there, which is not like me. But.
I was just going to say, no disrespect to Carlos. I love the artwork from the previous book, but Ismail just knocks it out of the park. A lot of his artwork reminds you of Steve Dillon. It's fantastic. And paired with your writing, it's just fantastic.
Ishmael's great. He's super, super talented.
It's really good stuff.
He and Roger Soroka, who are the colorists, are our team. They came as a package deal, which was great. But they're fun too because sometimes I say to them like, "Hey guys, I'm thinking about this next scene, or here's the script for issue 2, or I'm about to start the script for issue 3. What do you think?" And they'll come to me with things that they're like, "Can we make this happen in this place or that place?" So there's a great scene in issue 2 that happens just on the streets of London at night. And,
is it on here? Is it?
If you go back from here. And it's probably part of the preview of issue 2.
Okay,
So click this middle dude.
These covers are great too. They really,
the covers are phenomenal.
They make you want to read the book. So that's always a great thing.
So the issue 2 pages, the previews don't have letters in them, but
okay.
You see this, like this is a chase scene and a shootout that happens on the streets of London at night. So it's all gas lamps and headlights and muzzle flashes and like. Originally, I think it was going to be indoors or something else, and Roger was like, "Man, can we put this?" Or it was going to be during the day, maybe. And he said, "Man, this needs to happen at night, so that all the light sources and all the action like happen in these headlights." Because it's not a, London now is a major metropolitan city, and it was then too. But it would have been mostly dark after sundown. It would have been, very Gotham by gaslamp, very dark and very brooding. And so, like you see all these great like light noir-y shots, and like every muzzle flash and every headlight from the old Model Ts and stuff. Well, and this was all Roger's idea. He's like, I want to draw it. I want to be at night. I want it to be this dark, moody, gray thing. And I was like, yeah, we'll rewrite the thing. And then it gave me a great idea about how there'd be a car wreck. And
that's a sign of a good creative team.
Yeah,
you guys it was so much fun.
Look at the eyes right there. That wouldn't look as good in the daylight.
That's what I'm saying.
The dark afforded that, and the dark also affords every muzzle flash or gas lamp, like you said, to pop that much more off the page. It gives beautiful contrast. It's just
he had this great idea and he wanted it to happen that way, and I was like, man, I know the emotional beats of what has to happen. It can happen at night just as well as it can happen during the day. And if it looks that much better and he's excited about drawing it, makes me excited about writing it. And that's the real joy about making comics. And that was the part that, like I said before, that I discovered once you start making things with other people, their ideas make your ideas better and your ideas feed their ideas.
I agree.
And before 100%. You know it, that's what comics are about.
And let me compliment these guys too. I mean, I was just scrolling through these 6 pages or so, and the sign of a really good artist and this is something like I went to 1 year at Kubert School, so I know art a little bit myself. The thing of the storytelling is excellent. Like the one thing about good comic art is if you can follow the story without any word balloons on it, and just scrolling through these pages, these guys nailed it. Like these guys are really good. It's a great creative team that you got here, Jeff.
Magic
on that.
Ishmael Canales and Roger Soroka, and they are awesome.
Yeah, a magic can happen when you have the right collaborative team. And Jeff, clearly you found the appropriate collaborative team.
I got very lucky.
Now I want to look at some of the pages from 3. Sorry, I get
go past this really fast. That's a little spoilery. Keep going.
Okay. All right. Cool.
But I was just saying, this campaign's running right now, and it's got a ton of awesome perks. I know every time I've backed one of Jeff's campaigns, I usually go a little bit higher tier, but it's worth it because you get really cool shit. You get a fucking dossier that looks like it came straight from the Secret Service of the time era.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, or in the Arcane book, you're getting like coasters and matchbooks and other cool shit you can have for your own home personal bar.
This is
one
one
thing
of
I
my
wanted to
favorites.
ask you,
These are the insignia patches for the intelligence thing, and these are cool.
Yeah,
go ahead, show it on the camera. Oh, cool. So that's the patch of
it's like the unit patch. So the Sheffield and Watson are part of an intelligence service known as the 6th Special Intelligence Service, and there's a reason that it has a little violin on it, which obviously is going to be in the story. By issue 4 of this arc, which is the first arc of 4 or 5 that we want to do, all the characters will be wearing these on their uniforms. They didn't exist at the beginning of the book, but eventually they will, and then you can get one for yourself in advance.
Now, the Kickstarter, you said now the 4 issues comprise the first story arc?
Yes.
Okay, so they can get anybody that's looking at the campaign tonight, or when they check it out on our channel this week, they can get all 4. They can get in on the ground floor, get the entire story for the first arc on the Kickstarter.
That's absolutely true.
Perfect.
We did.
Let's take a look at the Kickstarter. You did really well with this.
Oh, thank you. This one's blowing up. This has been the biggest one we've ever done. We did.
See, isn't that funny? Like how I was just saying, like when you build an audience on Kickstarter, it's like the reverse of the way comics trend in comic stores. Because if you notice anything about comic sales, like you have a strong first issue, usually sells the best, but then the readership starts going downhill with the second, third, fourth issue. It's the polar opposite when you crowdfund your book. You build an audience because you can offer the first couple issues along with the new issues, so it kind of builds like a boulder effect. Like, out of curiosity, how well did the first Kickstarter do for this series?
So I was going to say the first Kickstarter we did was for issues 1 and 2 together.
Because what was the total on that? Like,
it was almost 6,000. It's like 5,800.
Yeah, look at that. So you've already
we blasted past that, which is great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, really high percentage of returning backers who got the first 2 who came back. One of the things we were really excited about was we were able to do the campaign for issues 1 and 2 in September of last year. Okay. It ran late August and early September last year. We had the books finished, printed, mailed, and out the door. All the rewards went out by November of 2020.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's important.
Yeah. We had the books mostly made. Like, we were down to just layouts and a little bit of back matter and how many people's names go in the back from the Kickstarter campaign, and that was all we had left to do. Gotcha. And so, which we like doing. I've always done that with every Kickstarter campaign I've ever done. I would rather put the book together first and then take it to Kickstarter rather than ask backers to give me money and then wait for 9 months while we go and draw and make the book. There's nothing wrong with that approach, and it's what a lot of people do. I got lucky enough from an early Kickstarter to have enough money to be able to do the next one, and we just kind of like make it and then go to Kickstarter to try to get the funds that we put into it back so we can go and make the one after that. But it also shortens delivery times. So instead of backing a book and waiting for 6, 8, 9 months to get it and shows up in your mailbox and you're like, oh, I totally forgot I even did this. We can tell you this is coming in May, and it's coming in May because the book's done.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So, this is the furthest out we've ever been.
Nice. You guys heard it from the source. The book's done. So you're definitely going to get the book.
Well, we're cheating on this one a little bit.
What's that?
This is the first campaign I've ever done in which the book isn't, at the very least, all the way into like lettering. Roger's coloring issue 4 now. Issue 4 is completely drawn. We've got colors and letters and then layouts for issue 4.
That's awesome, man.
Issue 3 is complete, sitting in my inbox right now, ready to go to the printer. Except again, we have to know how many people's names to put in the back because all the Kickstarter people get listed in the.
Oh, cool! Very
so
cool. Very cool. Yeah. So you guys are watching this out there. Definitely consider backing this campaign, especially if you're a fan of Sherlock Holmes, adventure comics. I would say, right?
Yeah. If you like Sherlock Holmes, if you like James Bond, if you like Peaky Blinders, it's that right era.
It's an elegant book. To that extent, I'd like to say.
Yeah, you've read it, right, Johnny? You've read the first 1 and 2.
Yeah, I read the first 2 issues.
What's your quick review of the whole thing?
Very elegant. I feel like I am reading something authentic to the era. Very technical. Good use of just the dialogue's fantastic. Jeff's dialogue's fantastic because he puts a little bit of his own speak in there. So I can kind of hear his voice, only knowing him personally, but he masks it well with the character. It's just fantastic. It's good. It's a good book. Keith, I was going to say, do you have the audio ready so we can run the trailer?
Yeah. Let's take a look at the trailer so people can see what this is about here. Let me press play here. Let me actually blow it up here.
Oh God, that's my face.
Look at that man. Look at that handsome devil.
Oh, God.
All right, here we go.
Roll that footage.
Jeff Ryder, the writer and creator of Major Holmes and Captain Watson. Check out the trailer for issues 3 and 4 and stick around after for more info about the campaign.
Very cool.
That's so badass.
We're super excited to get Major Holmes.
Okay, skip this part.
Okay.
That's on the website. It's on the Kickstarter campaign. You can see me being a dork on the internet.
Awesome. Great trailer, too. Did you make that, Jeff? Or
I
did
did,
you have
yeah.
somebody else do
No,
that?
I made it. Yeah.
Yeah,
As part of that, listening to that music, I was like having mini PTSD flashbacks about trying to get all those little moments to line up. I've heard that piece of music so many times.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah.
Like a worm in my brain.
for you.
Sure. So tell us a little bit about some of the perks on the project if someone's interested in helping you fund the book.
There's some cool things. Like we've talked about before, if you were a backer of the previous campaign, you can add on all the stuff that you don't have already. So there are both digital and print versions of issues 3 and 4, or there are packages that have all 4 of the issues, and that's a complete story arc from beginning to end. Almost in the way that in Sherlock Holmes canon there are cases. This is their first case, or at least the first one that the fans will have seen. So it imprises a single story, which it has its own subtitle. The first arc is known as The Adventure of the Vengeful Scholar. And beyond the books, there's some cool swag stuff. We always do sticker packs with just about every campaign that we do. So if you're into stickers, there's some simple stuff in there. We're going to be doing. I don't have one of the packages with me, which is kind of a bummer. But there are some great prints that come in the book. This is where we're going to get back to G.I. Joe a little bit. We did this for the first campaign, and we're doing it again for this one. Johnny was talking about there's like a special file folder that looks like an old British military file. Okay. And you open it up, and there are prints inside that look like old intelligence photographs. And they're pictures of the characters or some of the places in the stories, some of the historical things. And then you flip them over, and on the back it has detailed information that's canon within the story about why this background is important, or why these weapons or motorcycles, or this character or that character, and a little bit of their backstory and what's going on. And so it sort of broadens the story a little bit, adds some depth to the world. Kind of in the same way that when you bought G.I. Joe action figures when you were a kid, and there was those file cards on the back about where Gung-Ho grew up or whatever. There's what it is right there? There's a little bit of that going on. These are new for this campaign. It's a blank field notebook that you can keep your own notes in. The idea being that the detectives would always be writing down their clues and stuff. So some fun swag for that. And I'm one of those guys who always keeps a notebook in my pocket to write things down and stuff. Here, click this little play button right there. This is the preview that we put together of what the special dossier packaging with all the fancy stuff looks like. This is the prototype. But yeah, it's like an old style string and button file folder thing.
Oh, wow.
That the comics come inside it, and it's got some other cool swag in it.
Really cool, man.
These are all handmade. I make every one of these by myself. They're fun.
So every backer will get one of these?
Not every backer. You can just get the comics if that's all you care about.
Okay.
But then this is a special reward tier that's going to have. It has the books in it. This is really cool. We're doing eyeballs. I also write prose short stories that feature the characters. And there are two of those. There's one that came out the last campaign, and there's a new one for this one. These are the files that tell you a little bit about what the characters are like. So you get some backstory that might not necessarily be in the book. That sort of helps fill out the world a little bit. And it will have teases and stuff for things that are coming in the future.
Well, the other cool thing is I saw that you guys you unlocked a lot of stretch goals. So anybody that even gets on the ground floor will get a lot of other bonus stuff.
That's the thing that I'm a big fan of when it comes to the stretch goal. The first day backers are great, and they come in and they back the book and they're ready to go. But when you go in that if I pay $32 for this tier, that as the campaign goes on, there's going to be more stuff that gets added into my pile. So my $32 is going a little further than it did before.
Right.
Which is always fun. I was ready to feel like, we got in on it early, and the more we share this with our friends, the more folks we share this to, the better off this works out for me down the line. So that's always fun. Some of the stretch goals we decided, just like the last campaign, originally the prose short story that we wrote, or that I wrote, was just going to be like a PDF. You would just get a digital story. But because we hit a certain stretch goal, we decided to make the physically printed booklets, a small book with art on the front, and it's just a textbook on the inside. Those turned out to be really, really popular. Everybody's a big fan of those. So we're going to do it again for this campaign. We hit a stretch goal, so we have enough money to do print versions. The higher tiers get the print version. Everybody gets the digital version, which originally wasn't going to happen. Before, you had to go high to get the story at all. Now we're sharing at least the digital version with everybody.
Great. So if you don't want to back high, at least you'll get it if you back.
Yeah, there's a pandemic on. Things are tough, and sometimes you want a thing, you can't quite, whatever. But we wanted to make sure everybody got it, and since we raised enough money to share it with everybody, we decided to go ahead and do it.
This looks awesome, man.
I was going to say one other thing I've always seen and known Jeff to do with his Kickstarters is always bake in a donation amount to some charity or some type of needful cause. Jeff, did you do one for this one?
We haven't done that for this one yet. That's the thing that I like to do with the books, usually once they're done. We've done add-on stores and things after the fact. The little book before this, one of the other things that I write is a book called The Arcane Cocktail Enthusiast, and it's an urban fantasy story about a woman who owns a magical cocktail bar in San Francisco, and she's secretly a wizard, and all her drinks are made with magical ingredients. When the pandemic hit, and especially at the beginning, this was last year around March or April, we had just finished doing that book on Kickstarter the year before, and I had all the extra books and some digital stuff that we hadn't shared with everybody yet. And so we put that up on a special site, and we donated all the money to, there's essentially a national union for bartenders called the Bartenders Guild of America. And there were so many service industry workers who couldn't go back to work for months and months, who, weren't even making their $2.13 an hour, much less anything else. And so we did a big fundraising sale, and we sold as many books as we could and donated all the proceeds to that gets shared with folks who are out of work for a little while. And even David, who's the artist on that, and I did a really quick short story of like the magical bar shutting down during the pandemic and trying to cast magical spells to keep everybody as safe as possible. But there's no magic for getting out of it. There's only us sticking together. And that was sort of the premise of the story that we wrote. There's no magical answer for this. There's magical answers for other things sometimes. With Holmes and Watson, we haven't gotten around to that yet because we just haven't determined the right thing to give to. But yeah, that's something that we always try to incorporate.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's really nice of you too.
Yeah,
I'm really lucky I get to make comics for a living. I don't have to dig ditches or work in a coal mine, and some people do, and some people love doing that. And there's nothing wrong with it. But I'm very grateful to have the career that I have and to be able to sit in my little room here and make comics. And so if there's a way that we can help other people who maybe are having a tough time, then we'll try and do it.
Great job, man. This campaign looks awesome. Really congrats on it, man.
We're excited. We got a week to go. It's a week and a day. It ends next Thursday. So
nice, and I think you can hit even more. Honestly, I bet you might hit 10 by the time it's over.
My secret heart of hearts goal is 9,000. If we get to 9, I'll be pretty happy.
Awesome.
You know what though? There's always that bump at the end, so I think I'm confident you'll hit it, Jeff.
We're doing well. We're grateful for it, and like I said, it's going to help us fund putting together the next one because there's also a secret plans back here behind my X-Men posters up on the wall.
Oh man, yeah. So like literally, Jeff's office is like a secret lair.
Okay, you want me to do it? You want me to do it?
Yeah, can you do the thing? Okay. Do the thing. Do the thing, Jeff. Keith, check this out. Fucking dope.
All right.
Look at this.
Okay. Yeah.
Posters. Yeah. Posters. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But I don't think he realizes he muted. Can you unmute him, Keith? I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe.
Let me see. No, I'm not doing it. He's doing it. So was this like?
Jeff, you're muted. You're muted, Jeff.
Let me see. I think when he. So we could talk. So is that like his?
So though that's basically his.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
There we go.
You muted as soon as you unveiled the thing. I was like, oh, he's just trying to keep it safe and secret.
So instead of like a safe filled with money, what is this?
This is my big whiteboard. I have this giant magnetic whiteboard in my office. It's got the outline for all the future Holmes and Watson arcs on it.
Gotcha.
We talked about, this Kickstarter, you're going to get the issues 3 and 4 is the final arc of the first case of Holmes and Watson. But there's a whole series of other cases that we want to do that happen throughout the historical history of World War I. The timing
in real history with it.
Oh yeah. That's
cool.
Speaking of research, Johnny was kind of joking about it before, but this book turned out to be more research than I ever thought I was getting myself into in a million years because it's set in the Conan Doyle canon of Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes isn't a character in our story. He's not part of this, but his family are, and there are minor characters from the Holmes canon who become parts of the story down the line.
Awesome.
So if you're a Sherlock Holmes dork, there's all those facts we have to get right.
Everything's authentic. The motorcycles, the guns.
That's where we got ourselves into even more trouble because it's also a World War I story, which means there's all this history and politics and social issues that you have to get right in that case as well. And so that's mountains and mountains more of research because if there's anybody who's more interested in details, Sherlock Holmes fans, it's war historians. Like you can't step on even the tiniest detail with these guys or they'll eat you alive. And so it means it's a bunch of research. and I just read and read and read. It feels like some days. But it's good because every new crazy story I read about World War One gives me another idea for a crazy adventure that they can have, and another mystery that they'll uncover. And so, if we're lucky, we'll get to do 5 or 6 of these.
Oh, okay, is that how many you're envisioning for the series? I mean, you can probably keep going, no matter,
Well,
are you envisioning like 5 or 6 right now?
We could. There's a finite ending. I know what happens.
Oh, you do? Okay. Cool.
How exactly we're going to get there, and if there are offshoots that we could have on the way, who knows? Like I said, every time I read about a new crazy thing you didn't know about World War One, I'm like, I can tell you what you didn't know.
Yeah.
Let me write a mystery about how this works. And so, every now and then I come across a new idea, and I was like, oh, we could do an arc about that. But the premise of the first book is they're going to uncover, what we talked about before, and there's a little bit of hints of this in the trailer, so I'm not giving away too much. But there is a sort of cabal of nefarious evildoers, and he discovers some of their names, but they don't know how many of them there are, and they don't know who they are exactly. By the time we get to the end, we will know who all of these bad guys are. I know who all the bad guys are. And facing off against, at the very least, the biggest of the bad guys, if not a few of them, and whatever, is the final part of the story. And so how we get there along the way...
Like, the nephew of Professor Moriarty?
Probably not, but yeah.
Read the book.
Kill me, because I want to tell you, but no, we can't do that.
Okay.
But there's some fun stuff in there, and I mean, there literally I've been reading about a group of Italian mountaineering special forces guys that existed in the Swiss Alps during World War One that are still a thing today. There's a whole arc that may or may not feature Mata Hari, who was one of the biggest spies of World War One and an interesting character in her own right. So we may cross over with a little bit of history there. There's a road that we're on, and this is just the very beginning of where we're going, which is the fun part. So,
there's so many adaptions of like Sherlock Holmes. This one sounds really exciting to me. There's so, it's been done so many times that you just kind of like, it's another adaptation. But this, I really like it. You found a new angle into the mythos that's fresh and new, and what I mean?
Very much fresh and unique. Fresh and unique take, absolutely.
Speaking of which, do you guys have a favorite Sherlock Holmes adaptation that you like, or is there?
That's tough for me because I watch all of them. Like I'm into, and especially because of this, like it is. Thank you for saying that. It is unique, partly because we made it that way on purpose. We didn't want to do another reimagining of Holmes and Watson. Like I said, Sherlock Holmes isn't a character directly in our story. Because he is a relative of the characters in our story, he affects what happens to them, and his reputation is a part of the story. But he himself is not a character. There are also legal things about Sherlock Holmes that you have to be careful about using, and so we didn't want to even come close to any of those landmines, so we just didn't bother. And to me, it's more interesting to make someone new, to create a new
I agree,
a new detective or set of detectives. In fact, and that was one of the tropes that we wanted to play with. I really enjoy the BBC Cumberbatch.
I do too. I still need to watch the last season, but what a great, I tell everybody, if you want to do a modern telling of a classic story, use that show as a template. I mean, they hit it, they fired on all cylinders with that, I think, There was also a really good American sort of version of that they did called Elementary. I never saw that one. Was that good?
I watched a little bit of Elementary. That was going to be my vote.
It's okay. But both of those books, or those stories or whatever shows, for me, suffer from one of the problems that a lot of the sort of reimaginings and the pastiches do, and that is that Holmes, the brilliant detective, is super screwed up. He's broken because he's brilliant. And the idea that because you're a genius, you must somehow also be a flawed pain in the ass, to me, that just doesn't fly. I know lots and lots of really, really brilliant, smart people, and they're inspiring to me, and most of them are really nice people. I don't buy the idea that with genius comes madness, and I'm a little over that trope. So when we created our new Holmes and Watson, one of the things we wanted to approach was that our Holmes is brilliant, He's every bit the detective that his uncle was. And the reasons that his family has this gift are something that we explore a little bit. But more than that, he's a good person. He's capable of, forming solid relationships with people and really engaging in romantic relationships and having good friends and treating people with respect and generally being a nice guy. Just because he's awesome doesn't mean he's an asshole. And
they use that a lot. Even in the Robert Downey Jr. one, he was like that.
Yeah, he's kind of a jerk. And some of that is to get a little into the nuts and bolts of it, is trying to sidestep the Holmes legal issues.
Mm-hmm.
There are a late set of Sherlock Holmes stories that Conan Doyle wrote that are not yet public domain. And in those stories, Holmes becomes a little softer and a little more open and a little friendlier to other people. And if you use a Holmes that is friendly and open and nice to people, you are in danger of stepping on the family's connection to the last sort of hat. So there's a great series called Enola Holmes that's sort of a similar imagining, where Sherlock and Mycroft have a little sister. And in those books, her big brothers look out for her. But that got them sued because they made a Sherlock who was nice to people. And that is against the rules for a few more years. So I think they lean into it. I think in particular, Sherlock in Elementary hard leaned into how much Sherlock Holmes was a drug addict and how much he was a jerk and how much, because he was brilliant, he was just annoying to everyone around him. Whereas in the original canon, when I read it, and again, you want to talk about reading things to pieces. I mean, I have my copies sitting here on my desk. I just broke my webcam. But, I mean, my copies are falling apart, as you can see.
Oh, wow.
And when I have read those original books, in the original canon, the people of London thought Holmes was great. Like, everybody thought he was awesome. They were blown away by how smart he was, but no one other than some of the cops who he was kind of mean to thought he was a real jerk. Like, everybody sort of dug Holmes. And Watson's whole thing was to make everybody like him because of how amazing he was, and that's why he wrote all these stories about him. But we wanted to have a Holmes and Watson that were likable just because they were nice people. So we created Sheffield Holmes to be a little bit different, and we wanted to distinguish him from his uncle, so that you understood that he was a completely different character and totally new.
That's a wonderful sidestep, though, to be able to play in that court without having to, face any potential legal consequences.
And it gave us a good excuse to make sure I was digging out from just telling more Sherlock Holmes stories and creating an original character who could do something new in the same world, who does a lot of the things that Holmes can do, but also does a lot of things you've never seen Holmes do before. Our Holmes is a sniper and a spy, and he's as much James Bond as he is Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah,
and
I like that. I like that.
It really compiles other things. And the other thing that we got to do because of this is his Watson is completely unlike any Watson in any version, whatever. She is absolutely his equal. She's as much a detective as he is. She's probably a better spy than he is. She's a hardcore espionage agent who takes no guff from nobody.
Yeah. And she roughs up the suspect.
She does, and she's American, so she's clearly not actually a Watson. And how her secret and who she really is and how that ties into the whole Holmes family backstory is a big part of the underlying mystery of the thing. And I'm not going to give it away, but but it was a way to create a totally new version of something that you kind of think until you get into the story and realize this is an utterly brand new thing.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's
really
like
that.
His Holmes has swagger, and his Watson's like the best version of Sarah Connor out of T2. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Imogen Watson takes no prisoners, man. She's hardcore.
One of my favorite versions of or where Sherlock Holmes showed up. Do you guys ever see a movie called Murder by Decree? Directed by Bob Clark, who did like Christmas Story and Black Christmas and all that. He did a movie called Murder by Decree. I think it came out in like the 80s. And it's basically Christopher Plummer as Sherlock Holmes trying to solve the Jack the Ripper mystery. Who Jack the Ripper is. And they kind of get into like the whole the stuff that the comic From Hell gets into with the Masons and all that stuff. It's a great movie if you ever get a chance to see it. If you like Sherlock Holmes and you like Jack the Ripper kind of stuff. was like kind of a good crossover, you know?
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I trust you.
I recommend everybody that's watching check that out. Some of the people here said Basil Rath.
Basil Rathbone, yeah. Basil Rathbone is one of the great
great.
TV
and then immediately ruins it by saying Commander Data is Sherlock.
Those episodes are fun, though.
I know they are.
Yeah.
But I'm just busting because I know Harry. I used to work with him. And then someone else said, could there be a story with Crowley? Apparently he was a British double agent against the Jerrys. I never knew that, but
yeah.
I don't know.
We're not going to spoil what's coming.
Put it in the notebook, Jeff.
Yeah, scribble it in the notebook. Put it up on the whiteboard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we're getting towards the hour mark here. So we'll start sort of wrapping it up here.
Cool.
But Jeff, before we go, I wanted to, besides Major and Holmes, I wanted to look at some of your other books here. Let me go back to your website here. I wanted to. I noticed because this is your third series that you've done.
This is the second full-length series that we've done.
Okay.
But on the Cloud Wrangler Comics website, which is me.
Yeah, I wanted to look at this one. Looks really interesting. This is the one you're telling us about with the bartender.
Yes. This is the Arcane Cocktail Enthusiast. It's about a woman named Lark who owns a cocktail bar in San Francisco, who's, like we said, secretly a wizard who makes all her drinks with magic.
Oh, very cool.
She's discovered in the modern world that there's not a lot of magic left anymore. You don't see unicorns walking down the street and elves hanging out on the corner because magic has sort of been chased from our world by various nefarious wizards who essentially would poach the magical creatures and steal their magic, or even hunt them and kill them and eat them and do different terrible things to them. Her bar, in addition to collecting these ingredients from other realms where the magical creatures live now, she sort of protects them, and her bar has become kind of a way station and a safe haven for a lot of things that are endangered. My wife and my daughters are vegetarians, and I'm decidedly not. So it's very much about like food ethics and some of those things, and about eating sustainable things and protecting the environment, and a lot of those sort of general environmental causes and issues kind of wrapped up in some urban magical fantasy, which is really fun. Mostly it's just a fun magic story full of monsters and crazy stuff.
Well, I also feel like you put a little bit of yourself into your books, and given that you've also been a bartender for a good part of your life, I think that shows in reading this book as well.
It was my last career, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, when I said before I had a different job before I did this, it was that. I ran bars for about 20 years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Was it inspired at all by the DC? You know how DC Comics has the Oblivion Bar where all the magical heroes hang out?
I didn't know that, to be honest with you. I thought there was a bar in the Marvel universe where that happened too, but I could be wrong.
I think there's a bar where all the villains hang out in the Marvel universe.
Madripoor, right?
But I don't know about the magical. Maybe they do have a.
I remember in Jason Aaron's run of Doctor Strange not too long ago, there was like a hangout spot where Brother Voodoo and a lot of those guys were all chilling. But I also love there's been a rumor for years that the original creator of John Constantine and Hellblazer ran into someone that he was convinced was actually the character in a bar in England a few years after he created the book.
Jamie Delano. Yep.
And then other people who've written the book have claimed to have had similar experiences, like met a weird, creepy dude who really resembled the guy and would say strange things and then just strangely disappear. And I'm like, now they're just cosplayers that are fucking with these dudes, and you know that's how it works. But it's a cool myth that keeps perpetuating itself, that maybe there's this magical place where John Constantine really does hang out and occasionally end up in our world.
Well, wasn't John Constantine inspired by Sting? So
to a degree, physically, yeah.
That's really just Sting getting fucking
Sting getting hammered in bars.
Yeah, messed up. This looks great. It's got a very anime style to it, which I really like. Wow, this page is really cool.
David's such a fantastic artist. I also like to think of myself as like a godfather to this story.
It's true. David and I met because of Johnny.
Yeah, only because
look at Johnny making connections.
Absolutely true.
Me and Jeff were doing an AfterCon meetup thing at one of the conventions we were at. We were trying to, connect individuals, and sure enough, I was flipping through David's portfolio, and I go, "You got to talk to my friend Jeff because he would flip for this." And sure enough, I introduce them, and the next thing I know, bam, book happens. And it's
Awesome. So
This
Jeff,
is
is
another
this your
book that-
first comic? This is the first comic you ever did? Was this
No,
series?
no.
second one.
No. This is
Okay.
this is the first multiple issue thing that I ever did, though, for sure. It's the
Gotcha. And
first
this is
series.
what, 2 issues?
It's 2 so far. David's drawn the 3rd one right now.
Okay, so it's
Um,
still going. Okay.
Yeah, this is an ongoing. It's probably going to be somewhere between 12 and 14 by the time we get it done.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Awesome, man.
but-
Are you gonna kickstart this one as well? Or?
Yeah, we've done Kickstarter for both the first 2 issues. And when we get, down the road with issue 3 and it's ready to go, we'll do it again.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
fun
like
because,
it.
like I said, there's a whole audience for this book that we've sort of developed already too, and it's an interesting, different audience from the Major Holmes. Like, there's some overlap in there, but not a lot.
Yeah, it's very vastly different story.
Yeah, they're
It's
really,
very
really
cool.
different books.
Shows like your ability as a writer to do other genres, which is really cool.
I hope.
Now, this one looks awesome too. Gravity Matters. What is this one about?
Gravity Matters was the first Kickstarter that I did, actually, way
Okay.
back. This is a sci-fi story about 2 young women who are basically geniuses who exist in a world of the future that's filled up with garbage. And they live sort of on a ruined planet Earth of the future, and they keep getting caught in these horrible disasters, but because they're brilliant, they can figure out ways to get out of them. It's a little Towering Inferno or Poseidon Adventure, but in the future.
Very cool.
It's mostly about these 2 brilliant sisters who don't always get along, except when their backs are against the wall. And it's kind of about the funny things my daughters say to each other.
I was just going to say,
A lot of the dialogue is cribbed directly from my kids because they're hysterical.
another
Hey,
slice of
write
life
what you
that
know,
goes
right?
slide
That's
into
what
Yeah.
we
your
always say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is definitely inspired by my girls. They're a lot of fun. Hi,
Very
Grace. Hi,
cool. I
babe.
really like the way they did the lettering here too.
This
It's
is
part of the artwork. Very cool.
this is Sean Dillon
Sean Dillon, yeah.
is his name. Yeah.
Now, is this one finished or is this one still going?
Yeah, this is 2 stories. So this is a single physical print book that's available on my web store that we kickstarted. It's 2 short stories about the sisters in 1 book.
Oh, gotcha.
There's a 3rd short story that's a web-only story. And Sean and I have kicked around the idea of doing a Christmas special that sort of ties up the whole family together and maybe collecting all of it together one day.
That'd be cool.
But right
Like
now,
a trade of all
Yeah,
these.
right now the first 2 stories are in print, and the 3rd story is a digital comic that's on the it's on the site and it's on the web store, and I think it's on Comixology yet, but I'm not sure if we put the 3rd one up yet or not.
Awesome.
But it's out there in the world.
Cool. Very cool. And so let me just take a look. So everybody, definitely check out Major Holmes and Captain Watson. This is
7 days to go.
7 days left on the Kickstarter. If you love Sherlock Holmes, if you love adventure stories, if you love Sherlock Holmes and James Bond, definitely check this out. Looks awesome. Scroll through the
Thank you.
artwork. Very, very awesome artwork. The page looks really good. The lettering looks great.
Very
this looks
cinematic
great.
book. It's a very
and Johnny's
cinematic book.
read it. Johnny's given it his thumbs up and his highest approval or highest recommendation. So
And that's not just a bias that Jeff's my friend.
yeah, and to be honest with you, like I said before, Jeff, Johnny's been talking about this, off camera to me a lot. So even when we first started
It's good looking out.
talking about having you as a guest, he's like, "Yeah, you got to check out his book. It's awesome," and this and that. So definitely, everybody out there, definitely check it out. And Jeff, did you have where can people find you normally? Are you a Twitter guy?
I'm a Twitter guy, which is my handle is at Cloud Wrangler, which is my blog and my company. Cloud Wrangler Comics is me. So you can go to cloudwranglercomics.com where you'll find all these previews.
Awesome.
Right now, and it's in here in my handle, it says majorholmes.com. That URL right now will forward you to the campaign. In a week or so, when the campaign ends, it will forward you to the Major Holmes section of the larger Cloud Wrangler Comics page. You'll switch it over. But that's how you can find us on the internet. If you search Cloud Wrangler or Cloud Wrangler Comics on Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo or whatever your favorite search engine is, you'll find me because that's
You said duck, duck, go.
DuckDuckGo, baby. It's independent. Screw Google. Anyway,
I haven't heard of that. Is that a real thing?
Yeah, no, it's a great independent search engine. It's a lot safer and a lot less cookie-ish
every
than
day.
Google.
Never heard of that
That's how indie Jeff is. He's like, yo, check out that.
Use the weird search engine. Yeah, that's me.
I love it. Check it out.
But yeah, if you search Cloud Wrangler on the internet, you'll find me one way or the other.
Awesome. I can search for stuff and have it after like an old childhood game. So that's great. And then Jeff, I will when I put the video up on our website or on our YouTube channel, I will add all those links into the description. So if anyone's watching this after and wants to check out the campaign, you can go right from the YouTube description. You can follow Jeff there and check out all the social medias there as well. And Johnny, actually, let me see. We've got a couple comments here before. Jeremy Brett is my favorite Holmes.
Oh, that's a good one.
Who now? What is that one from? I don't know. I'm not familiar with the name. Is it? It's
an older series, I think.
Okay.
It's the one I'm thinking of. There's so many, and I have breezed through so many of them. I'm actually going to pull up his face to see if I remember what I'm talking about. Yeah, Jeremy Brett is
Sugar
old.
Chris,
old
hello
school.
everybody. Hey, Sugar, thanks for joining us. And then what is this one? I've been using DuckDuckGo for over a decade.
There you go.
Wow.
Way to go, Roland.
Honestly,
Way to go,
never
baby.
heard of it. I swear to God, I never heard of it until tonight. So I'll have to
good stuff.
check that out. Interesting. And Johnny, anything going on in your neck of the woods?
I'm just gonna.
Promo-wise?
First I want to thank Jeff for coming on. It's wonderful to have such a good friend featured on the show.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Jeff, too.
It's nice
I'm
to meet
glad
you too.
came
And
on.
thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
yeah,
keep
no.
knocking my
glad
webcam
you
over.
Bro.
I was so excited to get a webcam that wasn't a piece of junk, and then I just keep knocking it on the floor. I got to
We're
take
making
it
you
off.
for more interviews, Go ahead, Johnny. What were you going to say?
He's still working out the kinks on the webcam. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, make sure that you check out Movie Preview on Facebook. That's going on. There's some podcasts out there right now. My work is on Global Comics, so you can go there and check out any of my comics. And use DuckDuckGo, apparently.
Anything new on the horizon coming up, Johnny, that you want to talk about? Or?
I signed a contract for Cthulhu Volume 3 today.
Awesome, man.
So that is now official.
Is that Russell's thing?
That's Russell's thing. That's part 3. It's the first time I ever did a 3 of anything. So
I didn't know he was doing it. That's awesome, dude.
Now, is it a
so that's
continuation of your other short stories, or is something new?
No, it's the third part to the story. So, being that it's an anthology, my story with Kara is the only one that's an actual continued through line. Russell let us kind of get away with this little thing. Each story is individually kind of independent, except for the third. The third kind of heavily relies on the last two. But
you're gonna have a wrap up in the first panel.
Yeah,
in case you haven't read it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be
that's
the
like
Avengers.
an old comic strip technique.
Yeah, I like that.
You have the 3 panels, but you
Previously
always kind of wrap up the previous one in the first one, And
Yeah,
then you go on,
Yeah, it's the Avengers end game of short stories.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's good. And I've seen those books. They're very well put together. Very nice books. Very hardcover. They really look great presentation of the comics. And,
it's a good
good
book.
book.
I'm proud to be a part of that series. So that's going on too. And then I'm building the Surrounded by Death Kickstarter. Hopefully that'll be coming soon. That's one thing I actually didn't mention is that I've been saying I've been going to do the Surrounded by Death Kickstarter since last year. And then
it'll happen. It'll happen. It'll get there.
This campaign took my original date. But I'm glad it did.
You can run one campaign at a time.
No, I know. I just didn't want to step on your shoes at all. So I was just going to say that I'm glad it did because it afforded me another look at how masterfully crafted this campaign was to hopefully model myself after.
That's what you got to do. You got to look at a bunch of campaigns and just kind of put your own thing together. And
Jeff's got a pretty good master plan for running a Kickstarter. I've seen a little bit of the behind the scenes on that, and it's top-notch stuff.
Awesome. And not much new with me, although I did finally wrap issue 6 of Mighty Mascots. It's just about done. I finished like all the preliminary lettering today, and now I just got to go back and just do a fine tooth like edit through it, and then we're off to the printer, and then I could start filling my campaign. So
that's the beauty that's the beauty of lettering your own books, though, right? You can do that.
Man,
as a
I'm
writer,
George Lucasing the hell out of this thing. I'm going back and lettering is, I actually love lettering, and you'll never hear a letterer say that, because it's like such a tedious job. But I feel like it's like editing a movie in a lot of ways, because I change a lot of dialogue on the fly, and I don't know. I recommend it for writers, but it's not for everybody. That's for sure.
I lettered the very first.
Did you really?
Short comic I ever put out in the world. The very, very first thing I ever did was that anybody ever saw was an 8-page short Western comic about werewolves.
Okay.
Ben Bitt. With Stan.
With Stan Chow, and oh my God, I wrote it. Stan drew it, 8 pages, black and white, and then I decided I was going to letter it. And I got on the internet and I took a class, and I got the Illustrator and tried to figure it out. It took me a month to letter 8 pages, and it's awful. It's really bad.
Dude, you're lucky you could do it with Illustrator, because when I was in Kubert school, we had to do it by hand. You should have seen how horrible it was to work by hand back in the day. You had this little thing that you had I don't know. I can't even get into it. It was just horrible.
No, thank you. And then so I always complain about, man, this is awful. It looks so terrible. I can't believe I haven't had this re-lettered or whatever. And Justin Birch, who works on Made Her Home, he picked it up one day. I have some ash cans of it still left over, and he flipped through it. He goes, "No, this isn't bad. This is." Oh no, that's not right. No, that's okay. No, and he was like a page and a half in, and apparently I got the first page okay. And he was like, "No, that's not." He's like, "Yeah, just call me. I'll fix it for you." And I was like, and it's not. I just never did it.
That's fantastic.
It will definitely make you appreciate professional letterers and guys who treat it like an art form, like Justin does. Because, like I said, it took me a month. I didn't have any idea what letterers even cost or what whatever. When I found out what Justin's rate was and how fast he could do it, I was like, that is the best money I will ever spend in my life. Yep. I'm never lettering anything on my own ever again.
The comics that fail are the ones that skimp over the lettering, I find, because
it's the first.
They instantly make it unreadable. Yep. I agree.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I picked up plenty of amateur lettered books and read, this is good. This is a good starting point. This is a creator who is getting his feet under him and learning how to make things him, her, whatever. And I don't look at not necessarily the most perfect lettering and just throw the book away, but it makes you think about that book on a different level. You immediately go, this is a starting point book. This is a first try.
Yeah.
If you really want your book to look pro, hire a pro letterer to do it. It's so subtle, but when you see it, you know it. There's a difference between one and two.
It's such a hard subject to approach somebody on too that isn't aware of it, and you kind of want to tell them you gotta hire a letterer, but you kind of I know what happened with me.
I know what happened with me when I first started making comics and working with artists instead of just writing in a hole like I was talking about before. You realize artists are not cheap, and if you're an indie creator, it's tough to come by. Thank God for Kickstarter.
Yeah,
but when you're funding things out of your pocket and you hire an artist to draw your book, you end up spending a little bit of money. There's just no way around that.
Yes,
but
you have to if you.
You're so shell shocked from that happening. It's like, oh God, now I got to hire somebody to letter it too. I'll just do it myself. Whatever. And like, swear to God, if you think letterers are expensive, or if you think artists are expensive, letterers are cheap by comparison. Like it is that little extra.
It's like artists are really expensive, colorists are in the middle, and then lettering.
Lettering is not expensive. For the value that it will add to your book, it is the best investment you can make.
Yeah, I agree. It'll cost you maybe $100 or $200 to get your whole book done.
Yeah,
and Justin Birch, one of the best.
Birch is a classic. Birch and I have been working together since Birch was brand new. So
awesome.
I think he told me he lettered the short comic. The first thing he ever lettered for me, I think, was the second comic he'd ever professionally lettered for anybody.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. Now the guy is nominated for awards. He's amazing.
If you watch
Legit.
Justin, if you watch this, I think your lettering is awesome. This is
Justin's
I
man.
lettered too, so I
He letters my
good
wordy
job,
Sherlock
man.
Holmes book, and he gets through it. So let me tell you.
all the sound effects look great. All the little touches
Yeah.
he adds, I definitely notice it. It's really cool. All right, so let's end it there. So everybody, it looks like me and Johnny next week we got a double dose of an episode, right? We had two. There's so many Kickstarters and campaigns and promos going on right now. We have so many guests wanting to be on the show. So next week we're going to be doing Wednesday and Thursday.
Yep.
So back to back, it's like a two for
the price of one.
Two for the price of one. Two for ICR. I don't know. We
What?
don't have to have like one of those radio things. You know?
Back to the drawing board for that one.
Yeah, right.
Wednesday we've got
Token Dead team.
Still toking. They've got some legal stuff, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. So
I still don't know how to. I still don't know how to actually refer to them yet because Robert Kirkman did a number on them. But
let's just say podheads. The podheads are coming up.
Yeah. You plan to get blazed next Wednesday night with us.
Yeah, no, they have a comic called Token Dead, which is like a zombie comic with weed, I guess. Like,
wow, that sounds cool.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. And then Wednesday is
pissed
a book
off Robert
you worked
Kirkman
on.
something fierce. So people are going to want. So real quick, I'll say people are going to want to check that episode out because these guys basically pissed off AMC and Robert Kirkman so fierce that a lawsuit got involved. So you're going to want to check it out.
I want to hear the story
and hear all about it. So definitely tune in next Wednesday night. That's a tease. That's a hook right there.
Yeah, I want to get into it. I want to see it, like if the lawyers came out. I want to know everything. So we'll get into that. We'll dig deep.
We're going to do the full dirty laundry airing of the thing next week online. And I'm going to make sure, I'm going to make them spill it.
and then Thursday is a book you worked on, right?
Yes. So I got to write the second issue of Jared Brown's book, Advent Dark, which is also running on Kickstarter right now. So smoke weed every day.
Yeah, definitely come back. We'll have some weed stories next Wednesday.
Yeah, next week.
But anyways, yeah. So all right, everybody, join us next Wednesday and Thursday for another live stream, and we're gonna have a blast next week. Special thanks to Jeff for joining us tonight. Back his campaign, and
thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see everybody next week.